Well, this interview is with someone that I'm honored to say is a close personal friend of mine, as well as my favorite congressman. It's not for nothing that he's called the Senator with Guts, and you can find out more about that at senatorwithguts.com. You probably already know who I'm talking about, and that is Congressman Alan Grayson, who represents Florida's 9th District. That's Orlando. What you may or may not know is that Alan Grayson this year is running for Senate from Florida. There is no more important seat. For those of us who are progressives and want to see strong progressive voices in Congress, there is no more important race, so please really focus on this. This is Alan Grayson running for the Senate in Florida. Congressman Grayson, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you.
You know, I follow your career closely, as most of us do, and you've been saying some very strong things recently. I mentioned to you at one point, we were talking, it seems these days, about the soul of the Democratic Party, and your response was that we're talking about more than the soul of the Democratic Party. We're talking about the survival of the Democratic Party. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. This tension, this contest really going on, not only within the country, but within the Democratic Party.
Well, what is a political party? It's a group of people who come together to achieve common goals. And we're losing our sense of what those goals are for the Democratic Party. Issues just become playthings for people who want power within the party. And as they treat the issues that way, what they do is they lose touch with people's aspirations and lose touch with the voters. That's why we have such chronic difficulty in our party in motivating our voters to vote. The other side gets its deregulation. They get their anti-abortion principles embodied in law. They get their tax breaks and their, quote, smaller government and so on and so forth. What does our party deliver for us? And in essence, we face the risk that the Democratic Party voters will simply go on strike. And that's a very real risk right now, especially since we have candidates who basically tell them that nothing better can be done. Well, I don't see it that way. I'm running in order to accomplish specific, concrete goals, and more generally to fight the pervasive inequality that has leached itself through our social fabric to the point where we have unequal income, unequal schools, unequal health care, unequal education, and so on and so on.
Now, I've heard you and also Bernie Sanders talk about FDR quite a bit. And one of FDR's favorite lines was when he would refer to the economic royalists. Well, it seems like we're reenacting that contest, aren't we, between the people who are focused on the kind of ideals that FDR had versus, once again, the reappearance of the economic royalists. What does that mean exactly, and where do you stand on that?
Well, what it means is that we're dealing with reality. The reality is that this country now has the most unequal distribution of income and wealth that we've ever seen, even going back to 1929. That essentially all of the additional income that's been accrued since the recovery started under President Obama in 2009 has gone to the top 1%. But more generally, you have to go all the way back to the 70s to find any time when people had some kind of healthy aspiration that their lives could be better over time. Wages are no higher in this country today than they were in the mid-70s. That shows you how far away we've gone. How long has it been since we even raised the minimum wage? It's been 20 years or more. So what we're seeing here in general is that there's a choice. The choice is to deal with reality, the reality of burgeoning inequality on every level, economic, social, political, and so on, or to ignore it.
Well, when we talk about wages, we talk about not having raised the minimum wage. Is that the primary factor involved in income inequality, or is it that combined with the tax breaks for the very, very wealthy? I mean, what is the most important factor there, or do they work in tandem? What creates that enormous disparity?
They do work in tandem, but underlying it all is what amounts to economic betrayal. What we've had a trade policy in place now for 20 years, going back to the Clinton administration, that has employed tens of millions of foreign workers at the expense of our own. That's a choice that's made through policy. There's no sort of natural economic force, if you will, like gravity, that determines our trade deficit. That's a deficit that's determined by the political economic system, if you will. And what we've done is, for the sake of benefiting multinational corporations, we have impoverished the country. So whether you're talking about taxes, as you did, whether you're talking about trade, whether you're talking about the simple fact that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, it all comes together in the worst possible way, which is to drive us all toward debt slavery and cheap labor.
And wouldn't Trans-Pacific Partnership only make this worse?
Oh, no question about it. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is the fast track to hell.
It doesn't even attempt.
You do have a way with words, Congressman.
Sorry, what?
When you said that the Trans-Pacific Partnership is a fast track to hell, I said you do have a way with words.
Look, it's reality. I've asked the administration over and over again for their projections as to what the Trans-Pacific Partnership would do to the trade deficit. We all know it would increase the trade deficit. It would increase our trade debt, which is already $40,000 for every single human being in this country. And their answer was, well, we never bothered to calculate that. They didn't because they know very well what the answer would be, that it's just that much worse. It takes a bad situation, a very bad situation, and makes it that much worse. You know, I invite people to think about it. We owe $40,000 to foreigners for every single American. What if they woke up tomorrow and said they wanted their money back? What would we do? It's a horrible situation, and yet all they want to do is appease the multinational corporations who hire the $700 an hour lobbyists and commit this legal bribery called PAC contributions.
Right. Now, you support universal health care, obviously, right? And you you support Senator Sanders' idea about free tuition for public colleges and universities. Is that true as well?
I not only support it, I'm the one who introduced it in the House of Representatives. You know, you can tell a lot from that. There's 435 of us. Senator Sanders' proposal, like President Obama's proposal, has been all over the news. Which one of us actually bothered to take that bill from the Senate and introduce it in the House? That was me.
This is the question, and it's not that anyone would disagree with you, but the question that all of us get is, how are you going to make that happen? How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to pay for it? Tell us what the answer is to that. How do we pay for those things? And I realize, of course, they never say how you're going to pay for a war, but I think progressives need to know the answers so that they can know how to articulate when this question comes up. How do we pay for universal health care, and how do we pay for free tuition at public colleges and universities?
Well, bear in mind that we spend roughly 35% more than any other country in the entire world on our health care already. And we still have over 30 million people in this country who can't see a doctor when they're sick. If you exactly duplicated, I mean down to every detail, exactly duplicated the healthcare system in a dozen other countries, any of which you could do, and duplicated that here in the United States, we'd save trillions of dollars. How is it that, for instance, Canada can provide universal health care to every single Canadian for 12% of their GNP, which, by the way, is smaller than our GNP, when we have to spend 17% of our GNP to not cover everybody? How is it that the UK can provide health care to every single person in the United Kingdom for 10% of their GNP, much smaller than ours, by the way, when we have to spend 17% of ours to not cover everybody? It's obvious that the system that's existing is broken. There is an inherent conflict of interest in the system. It's primarily based, at least in terms of 2/3 of the citizenry, on private insurance. Private insurance tries to get as much money as they can out of your pocket. That's their revenue. They try to give you as little as possible in return. That's called your coverage. And the difference they call profit. And that is a malicious system that ends up denying people the care exactly when they need it. So,
and the American people deserve better.
And the same thing is true, by the way, of public education. You know, there are all through Europe and in some parts of East Asia, you have universal available public education to everybody. I happened to be in Finland a few months ago. In Finland, not only do you get universal higher education for everybody, but you get a stipend when you go to college, because the Finns understand that if you're in college, you're increasing your human capital. And that's something that's going to be valuable to everybody for the next 50 years or so of your life. So they actually give stipends, not just free tuition, but stipends to their college students. And their system is cheaper than ours. Their system ends up being cheaper than ours. The best schools in the UK cost basically a little more than half of what the best schools in the United States cost.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that this will only help stimulate the free market economy because more people can get in the game, more people have discretionary income, more people can start businesses and so forth. Now, one of the things I want to make sure we wrap up with is I want to get to your race. I know you have a tough primary, on August 30th, and you have an establishment candidate who's running against you in your primary. And this is where that tension is, not only in the country, but within the Democratic Party. So I want to hear a little bit about what you need from us. I think enough of us realize getting you into the Senate is so important. But I assume obviously you need financial support, but also we need people on Facebook. We need people on the social media. We need people making phone calls. Tell us how you see your race and how we can best support you.
We're trying to do something that nobody else in the House has ever done but me. That's a shocking thing to say, but it's true. In both 2014 and in 2012, I was the only member of Congress, the only one, who actually won an election based upon contributions from small contributors. In each election, 2014 and in 2012, most of our campaign money came from small contributions of less than $200, 1 out of 435. Now I'm trying to do the same thing for the Senate. There's only one person who's ever done that in the Senate. Can you guess who that is?
Tell me who that is.
Bernie Sanders. And Bernie's now trying to do it at the presidential level, just the same way that I'm trying to do it at the Senate level. And the reason is that money is poison in politics. Money has been called the mother's milk of politics. It's the poison of politics. I can't tell you how disturbing it is for me to see my primary opponent and my two general election opponents, who are both all in the House of Representatives, cut the law into little pieces and sell it off to the highest bidder. I am unbought and unbossed. Why? Because we have over 100,000 people who've come to our website, formerly congressmanwithguts.com, now senatorwithguts.com. Right. And they contribute to the campaign, which means I can actually legislate. I can do the good work that I do. And I do it very well. I've written more bills than any other member of Congress. I've passed more amendments in the past 3 years than any other member of Congress. The former record holder, by the way, was Bernie Sanders. And then not only that, but 25 different Grayson bills have become the law of the land, passed by the House, passed by the Senate, and signed into law by President Obama in just the last 3 years alone. Nobody else can match that record. I've written the most bills. I've passed the most amendments. More Grayson bills are the law of the land than any other member of Congress. That's why Slate magazine says that I'm the most effective member of Congress. And Business Insider magazine, not the most friendly place for a liberal Democrat like me, says that I'm the most productive member of Congress. So I only can do this with the help of good people like the people who are listening to you right now.
Well, I think that those of us who do know, and that means everybody who's watching this summit knows now, that you are not only a jewel in the crown of progressive politics in the United States, but it's because not only of your capacity to articulate and to philosophize and to really make clear to everybody what progressive values mean, but you are one of the most effective legislators in the U.S. Congress, and I can't think of anything more important than making sure that you get into the U.S. Senate. If ever there was a time, we need Alan Grayson. You hear that, everybody? We need Alan Grayson in the U.S. Senate. I hope that you will get involved. His primary with the establishment, corporatized Democrat, is on August 30th, and please do everything that you can to help Alan Grayson get into the U.S. Senate, because if anybody kicks ass for progressivism, it's Alan Grayson. We send you all our very best, Congressman, and hope that this is just not only a joyful campaign for you, but a really deeply successful one. All my best, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I want to thank you for being the source of truth and hope and inspiration in so many lives.
I hope we continue for a very long time. Bye-bye.